And Audacity in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Lynn, and I'm here with my co-host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about nutrition and how we can make consistency a little bit easier.
Yeah. So do you want to start off with how we started recording this episode?
Yeah, super ironic, right? So I have been scrambling all day long, had a couple additional appointments that were thrown onto my calendar. So I really only had, like, as Marissa and I pulled up the podcast to get ready, and we usually chit chat a little bit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, let me go grab something real quick because I'm starving. So I went into my fridge and I opened it up because I don't have a meal planned. I didn't have lunch or anything like that. And I'm like, what can I eat really, really quickly that's also like not too quote unquote bad or is gonna, like, throw my macros. So I'm like, string cheese, a couple slices of mango, and what else did I eat? I don't even know because I like ate it so fast, right? What did I say?
Yogurt?
No, that's pretty bad. Like, I don't even know what I just ate.
It's been like 3 minutes, so this is pretty
I
rough.
know. Oh man. Mango string. Oh, and a little mini muffin
Oh,
that I made for Colton. So this is very atypical. Usually we've got, like, some bulk chicken, or we've got, some cooked proteins in there that would make throwing something together super easy. But I haven't done that yet. So unfortunately I knew. And so with my mindset going to that, I was like, okay, well, I'll grab some string cheese because that's a little bit of protein that will give a little bit of fat. Like, I'm not just like going to be starving like another 2 minutes into the podcast. But this is exactly what we tell our clients is like, you should have some foods, like some prepared foods in your fridge, kind of like ready to go in like emergencies that will make things like this a little bit easier than what I just did for my quote unquote like lunch or snack.
yeah. Well, what's funny about it is that, like, I came up with this podcast episode idea yesterday. So, like, it wasn't just like, oh, Christina was scrambling, let's talk about it. It was like, no, this was like listed out, and then this just so happened to unfold. So I think that that's just a funny coincidence. But yeah, basically, like, the kind of the idea behind this was, I think it's been too long since we've done like a more tactical episode around like tracking macros, because I've kind of like swung on the pendulum for a little while with that, because like I learned a lot about intuitive and mindful eating over the course of the past year, just through my own experiences and through like us and our coaching practice really evolving at PCC, where like we do a lot of that before we get someone into tracking macros, and some people never do. And so I think I swung on the pendulum of, like, I was just the macro coach, just like a lot of other people, and I just lived and died by that. And if you listen to the podcast back in 2020, that was pretty much like what we would talk about, was like tracking and hitting your macros was how you got to do what you got to do. And it was really all I knew. But then I swung the opposite direction, and I was like, tracking macros is, and I didn't go all the way like it's disordered and no one should do it and it sucks. Like, I didn't go that far, but I did go as far as to say, like, I think that, like, I just felt like I was avoiding talking about it and like really just trying to talk about like the foundational habits of things. And now, as the pendulum swings, I've fallen back into the middle, where at the end of the day, you can't manage what you don't measure. So if you are trying to lose fat and you have not been seeing progress, you should probably track something.
Yeah. And
And
I want to add something actually from my perspective, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you might have had that change, or maybe I don't know if resistance is the right word from it, but feeling so strongly about macros because I feel like you hadn't gone through a successful intuitive eating journey.
like, feeling that way about macros, like, was pushing it that way before.
Maybe because I feel like just recently, maybe it was in 2021, was it like after, I think after your wedding, when you kind of were like, okay, I did this shredding for the wedding thing, but now I'm trying to like maintain. And then you were like, I'm finally that person where I've lost weight doing intuitive eating, because you've never done that before. So I feel like maybe that helped like reaffirm your like ideologies when it comes to nutrition. So I feel like maybe
Yeah.
that like helped.
Yeah. And you're also a year behind. 2022 was the wedding.
Oh, what?
You said 21.
Yeah, 2022.
But yeah, but I also think that before probably 2022, I like knew about mindful eating skills kind of, but I also just like didn't know what I didn't know. And I was kind of a little bit more fixed in my mindset about what options I thought were out there for people. And like it was just really hard for me to figure out how to coach somebody without them tracking macros. So I think it was a little bit of that and a little bit of like the lack of confidence in it for sure. And then also I kind of just didn't really have the tools, the skill set. But with that being said, when you are tracking macros, dieting for fat loss, and you have gotten to the point where you need to track calories, protein, macronutrients to see progress, that is a very common place to be. And honestly, it's one of the easiest ways to see reliable progress when you are just trying to lose fat efficiently and not throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. So we do have a bunch of episodes on how to set that up. But basically, when you've gotten to that point, a lot of times people will be tracking their food, and there's just a lot of stuff that doesn't really naturally occur to people to think about, which is what if I go out to eat and I, struggle to hit my macros, or what if I, am just like hungry like you were 5 minutes ago, Christina, and I don't know what to grab in the fridge or what to have in stock in the house. And I think a lot of it is just like really figuring out how can we be proactive rather than reactive with the goals that we have, and how can we set ourselves up for the best possible success. And for somebody who has taught and used macro tracking for literally like 7-8 years, it doesn't even occur to me like what I'm thinking about or how I'm planning it, because it's just so automatic at this point. So for those of you who are new to this, because I know plenty of clients that we probably both have that are brand new to the idea of tracking their food and measuring what they want to manage, they might not think about how to plan it ahead of time. And so that's what we're going to talk on today, is just how to make being consistent easier by making the best option for you the convenient option, and how to like really just set yourself up for success with tracking in particular.
Yeah, and I really love this topic because lately a lot of the prospective clients that I've been talking to, they don't have an issue with motivation or accountability or like doing the thing, right? Like that's easy for them, or like having a set of rules. But I feel like what happens is there's just so much conflicting information out there that they don't really know what to do. So I love the idea of having like another tactical podcast episode where it's like, okay, well, if you can do that, like let's do these things, and then just kind of like watch the magic happen.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just watch it get easier. Cause like,
Yeah.
no, this stuff isn't easy, but like it can be pretty simple if you just set it up the right way. And like you don't have to be pulling your hair out and like hating every second of it. And I think a big part of the reason why a lot of folks have a negative relationship with, say, tracking their food is, one, just because it's too restrictive and the calories are probably just set too low in the first place, or two, they don't know how to properly set themselves up for success. So they're literally spending all their free time searching food on MyFitnessPal, trying to see if it fits, like guessing and seeing, what's going to happen, and just setting themselves up for failure because they just don't know how to do it. And if you don't know what you don't know, then like we'll learn you something.
Yeah, that was going to be, you don't know what you don't know. So I feel like a lot of times if you don't get upset, like you're not at fault because there's just so much out there. So
Yeah.
whatever diet, and so that's another thing. Like a diet doesn't necessarily mean calorie deficit. It just is like whatever nutritional philosophy you subscribe to, whatever you're doing, pre-planning and having food in bulk is like number one. Like those two things I think just go hand in hand. So that way you just have a little bit more plan and structure rather than going into your fridge and doing what I just did and trying to randomly throw something together and just hope that number one, it fills you up and fuels you and gives you energy. And number two, it's just like it is helping you hit your whatever target or rules that you have set for you that day that's going to allow you to get closer to your goals.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say, along with like pre-planning, just something like knowledge base that I think is really important for people who are starting to track their food and they're like, how am I gonna, like you just said, like pick something that's gonna hold themselves over and keep them full for longer if you don't even know what foods do that. And so like we often say that protein is very satiating, it holds you over for longer, carbs not so much, and healthy fats can be very satiating as well. But overall, a mix of macronutrients will hold you over for longer and take longer to digest than just like a single macronutrient. So if I ate 10 Ritz crackers, that would not hold me over for very long compared to Ritz crackers, some cheese, and some like turkey meat or something like that. So with that being said, something that I think actually is like a prerequisite to all of this is if you're tracking your food, just pay attention when you're actually tracking your food. Like when you log the thing, look at what is in this. Like, is this a source of protein, of fat, of carbs, of fiber, of certain micronutrients? Even you don't have to pay that close attention, but like just look and like actually be an active participant in that process, because you're not going to be able to make those choices on the fly down the road if you don't learn what's in the things you're eating now. And so I think number one, to make consistency easier, actually pay attention and mindfully track. Don't mindlessly track, and pay attention to absorb the information of what's in the food that you're eating so that it's easier for you down the road to just have that encyclopedia of knowledge in your mind about what is in my food. And if I need to make a quick choice for what's high in protein, I have this backlog of all this stuff that I've tracked and ate for the past however many months that I know I can go to and find in my pantry or my fridge. So pre-planning, absolutely. Pre-plan your macros, pre-plan your meal prep, pre-plan your grocery list. And all of that also comes back to like knowing what kinds of food sources you need. And so a lot of times, like that's why suggested grocery lists are super helpful, and like how we kind of set our clients up from the get-go. But don't forget to also be an active participant in learning that rather than just blindly following a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing. It's like, okay, if you follow a meal plan for, 12 weeks or something like that, but then you run out of foods on that list, or you're like, I don't know how to substitute XYZ. It's again, like you said, it's just kind of mindless. And then I don't know what to do when I have to do something on my own, or if I go out to
Yeah.
dinner or whatever that may be. So again, it's that mindfulness portion, which again, we talk about so much, but it is really, really important. So I love the idea of pre-planning, and also maybe just kind of like having intent behind what you're doing. Like maybe
Yeah.
that's a good one too, is like, again, that mindfulness, but like, what am I doing? What are my goals and how am I going to get there? And how does pre-planning, bulking, like all of these things like play into that?
I feel like a good word to like encompass all of that is like really operating with self-efficacy.
Mm.
Like the things that I do have an impact on the results that I see. And so that's like living with intention, operating with intention, waking up. And because I was just kind of thinking as you said that, I was like, so what is like being intentional with your nutrition really look like? It comes down to like remembering to check in with yourself when you're planning your meals, when you're about to eat your meal. And I think the best way to visualize it is visualizing the opposite. People who don't embody this are often people who are like, well, I'm, trying to be on a diet, I'm trying to eat better, but they're so swept away by how crazy their life is, and they're not taking the time to just check in with themselves, that like they just make these choices kind of mindlessly, float through life, and look at themselves at the end of the day in the mirror and say, what did I do today? What did I eat? Where did my time go? What choices did I make? When they were just kind of like letting life happen to them versus like really being intentional, like you said. And so I think a big part of being intentional in your choices with your nutrition literally comes down to like how you start your day. Like wake up, and I've been suggesting this with a couple of clients recently. I've been suggesting, I actually want you to wake up, and the very first thing that I want you to do is I want you to step on the scale after you've gone to the bathroom and log your weight in your app with all your goals right in front of you there. So they open their app, they have their dashboard that shows them like your water goal, your nutrition goal, your progress photos, whatever else you need to do. You log your weight in, and you've now checked in with yourself, and you just had your goals stare back at you in the face. So what does that do to set the tone of your day? And that's oftentimes called like a keystone habit, the habit that's the first domino in a line of dominoes of all the other habits that you're going to perpetuate. And it's so simple, but I think it's so important to like remember to do, because even myself, sometimes I'll step on the scale, I'll be like, cool, it was blah, 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 this weight, I'll log it later. And then like, boom, 6 hours go by, and I'm like, what did I weigh again? What did I eat this morning? I don't know. And so I think it's so important to just like, how do you start your day with intention, reminding yourself of your goal in some way, whether that's a visual reminder, how you step on the scale and log your weight, something very, very easy that you can shift to doing that sets the rest of your day and your choices up for success, so that you can be intentional with all your nutrition choices from there.
Yeah. And something that I do too is, and again, you and I go through phases where workouts are easy, or, you know, our nutrition, water, like all of those things are easy, and we don't need to think about them because they're just automatic. We're in a really good spot. And I've talked to some clients about this too. It's like, if you go through a period of tracking and then maybe get a little burnt out, or you just want to take a break and you go to not tracking, sometimes getting back to opening up MyFitnessPal and doing those things again is it's hard. And like you were saying, it's like, oh, I'll log it later. I'll log it later. And then the next thing, you know, it's like the end of the night and you're like, bah, whatever, I'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's hard. So I have my daily to-do list, and I know that you do too. You know, we have our power list, and like, sometimes I'll write, you know, track macros on there, because it's like, I need to check this off, and it's a reminder throughout the day. Okay, yeah, I need to log breakfast in it. So again, like it sounds like, oh, you know, Christina is not being on top of her nutrition today. Like, no, I will log the muffin, the string cheese, and the 2 pieces of mango that I had. That's intentional, even though it seemed like it's just on the fly, I'm not really thinking about it. Like, because yeah, when I opened up my fridge, I did have a moment of, what can I grab? How is this going to hold me over for the next hour? And how does this play into my overall day? Even though it was only a few seconds, it's like, it was still intentional, even though it was very quick.
Yeah.
But that's what I do, is I have like the track macros, or like a workout or whatever it may be. It's like, in that moment, it is something I have to write down. Otherwise it won't get done, or it's not serving that reminder for me. And it's like, maybe you don't have to open up your phone and do your log and look at your goals. Like, maybe you get to that point where that's just automatic for you. And that's what the habit that we're trying to create in the moment.
I think that the really big takeaway that I love from that is that being intentional doesn't need to take more time. And I think that's a really big misconception that a lot of people have, is if I'm intentional with my nutrition, it means that I need to spend 6 hours in the kitchen, and I need to, you know, spend 2 hours in the gym a day. It's like, no, like all you literally need to do is give yourself like a breath, a second to be like, okay, what am I going to eat from the fridge right now? And that's harder when you're like starving too. So like,
Yep.
you know, a lot of times people wait till they're like ravenous, going to eat their arm off type of hungry. And it's like, I've been that before, and I'll just grab whatever's right in front of me because my blood sugar is low, and I'm like, but I think it's like being intentional, giving yourself that second to think, to breathe, and doing so just throughout the day, so that you don't hit that point of ravenous hunger, and you can just operate at your best, making cognizant choices throughout the day, just because you're checking in with yourself. And it's really hard to do that because life is busy, but it's absolutely worth it. It doesn't need to take more time.
Yeah. You know, those memes on Instagram where it's like, oh, the basic gym girl starter pack. And it's, you know, those little memes. Well, I love this one where it's like, I don't want to cook or I don't have time, but I'm trying to be healthy starter pack. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't, but I could imagine what's
Oh,
on it.
well, but the thing is, like underneath it's like, this is actually not like a meme. This is actually like, you can do these
This is real
things.
advice.
Yeah, this is actually really, it's like the 90-second, like Minute Maid rice, like rotisserie chicken, like
Yeah.
tuna packets, or like beef jerky, or it's like, or the steamable vegetable packets. It's like you said, it's like you can be intentional without it taking a lot of time. So it's not like you have to be this gourmet cook, or, you're spending hours on Sunday meal prepping. It's just, what can I do that's going to make it easier. And so hopefully that's what this podcast is to like, okay, well, I don't have all this time to be like, spending all this time in the gym or all this time in the kitchen. So like, what can I do to set myself up to be more successful and have it be easier and not like an inconvenience in my life?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, that's amazing. And Costco rotisserie chicken, y'all. Like $4.99. Costco loses millions of dollars a year on that damn rotisserie chicken. Yes, Aaron looks it up. It's a fact. They
Why do they have it
lose
then? Why do
they
they?
lose millions of dollars a year on that and on their hot dogs, I believe, because they still only charge like $1 for the hot dogs,
Huh,
because it's like that's like the people's favorite. So like they make like probably millions and billions, but like they lose
yeah,
millions on the
interesting.
rotisserie chicken and the hot dogs in particular. But the rotisserie
Hmm.
chicken is like to die for. Like, and all those things that you listed, like I literally live by that stuff. Like
Hmm.
sometimes, I mean, Aaron cooks a lot. He does cook a lot, but when he doesn't, or when we get back from a trip, it's like he picks up a Costco rotisserie chicken and we get the little like heat up rice cups.
Oh
And
my God, I love
then
them.
we get a big bag of like stab it with a fork and microwave it green beans. And yes, I know like toxins and all that stuff. Like I know, but I'm just saying, if you're literally going from like eating like shit to something, this is a great step. um, and that's a meal right there, right? And so like just take some chicken thigh, you got some healthy protein, some fats, some rice, some green beans, like add some salt, add some ketchup. I don't know, like, and it's good. Like that is how simple it can be. And I live by this stuff and I'm a fitness professional. I don't do all the fancy shit. I don't cook at all. Like literally I only microwave things. And maybe that's not great for my health either, but like I'm just saying like this is how easy it can be. And we need to stop stressing ourselves out over like the fancy meal prep and like doing all this stuff, because honestly, to make consistency easier, like these are the things that can really be a game changer for busy people.
Yeah. And something that I teach our clients is meal prep doesn't have to be what you see on Instagram, right? Like you see the people with these pretty meals and it's like, oh, I've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner and all my snacks and all of this. And it's like, I'm good for the entire week. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be that. It can just be something so simple as just cooking some protein in bulk. So maybe you got some ground turkey, maybe you make yourself some like egg cups, you got some cooked chicken, or you have a rotisserie chicken, boom, like meal
Yeah.
prep. Um, or it can just be something like meal prep, can just be whatever you can do to like prepare food to make it a little bit more simple for you. So whether that is getting stuff ready to throw into the crock pot, so you have like crock pot meals in your freezer, or you
Mm,
have some vegetables that you cut up, or fruit that's pre-washed and ready to grab out of the fridge. Like all of those things are still considered meal prep. So
yeah.
like it's like, okay, I opened up the fridge, like my example, and I'm like, oh man, okay, well, I've got some pre-cut up fruit. I'll just grab that real quick. I'll grab a muffin. I already had that made, and some string cheese. Boom, like that. It's not ideal, but like in that moment that like kept me from going into the pantry and digging out and just eating some chips or something like that wouldn't necessarily have served me. So meal prep, it's like, what can I do that's just going to make my meals a little bit easier, and just start there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway from that is like you have to, if you want to be successful in the crazy busy times of your life, which like is, let's be honest, it's all the time,
Yeah.
is make the convenient option also the option that suits your goals. So
Yeah.
like manipulate your environment. And actually, I forget who said this. It might have been like Coach Casey Joe, who we've had on the podcast before. But she's been talking a lot about willpower lately. And I've had to actually change some of my opinions about willpower because research is starting to prove what I've said in the past wrong. But when it comes to willpower, like a lot of people, when they're surveyed, they found trends between the people that said that like willpower is no problem and people who like really say that they struggle with willpower. The difference in those people is the people who don't struggle with willpower are the ones who actually manipulate their environment to making the choices that they want easier. And the people who really struggle with willpower are the ones who don't do anything to their environment and just kind of live as a victim to it. And so it's like, I get it. You have kids, you need to have snacks around the house, you need to have these things, but it's like,
you have to have snacks around the house.
Yeah. So they have to be around, but it's like for you, for example, Christina, like, I guess a question that I would have, right, is, well, you probably have a bunch of snacks around the house, but you probably also keep snacks that are conducive to your goals around the house too. And so it's not, one or the other, but it's both together. And if the option that serves your goals is at least also there and is also convenient, it's like, if it's a 50-50 shot, like you can choose the one that is going to serve your goals versus if like the unhealthy option is the only one that's convenient, then you're screwed, right? Because then that's when you're going to grab it. And so for like parents, they often delude themselves into thinking, well, I can't have, the good stuff in the house because we have all the Oreos and the snacks. And yes, they might be tempting, but you have to also be thinking about how can I add in the stuff that is going to be helpful to me in a convenient way, because it's not helpful. I was just talking to a client yesterday. It's not helpful to have it take like 40 minutes to cook your lunch. Like she had a whole process of like, take the salmon out of the freezer, thaw it in a hot bucket of water and like saute mushrooms and this and that. And she was like, it takes me 40 minutes while I'm feeding my 1-year-old. And I was like, that needs to stop. Like you need something better. Like no wonder like you just default to Grubhub half the time. Like I would fucking hate that too. Like that's just the reality. So you need to figure out a way to make the convenient options also the healthy ones, and not in absence of keeping snacks around the house for others in your life, but in complement to.
Yeah. I love the idea of changing your environment and not being a victim to it. And we're like so off topic now.
But it's no, I mean, that's how you make consistency easier. That's a part of it.
Yeah. And so, I am, again, as a parent, like I don't have that luxury of just being able to do whatever I want, like at any time that I want anymore. I just can't do that. And so I started being like, wow, it is really hard to get steps in during the day because my kid's only awake for, or is awake and only naps for a little bit of time. And when he's napping, I want to work. And so I was like, I could have just sat there and been like, man, this is hard. This is hard. This is hard. I try to go on walks. I try to be active, but I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I got on top of the treadmill, I got a step pad because I'm like, I need almost like two different things. And, so I'm like, I did that, or it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, whatever it is, maybe it's like Oreos. It's like, oh man, those are really hard. Like, I don't know, maybe try Oreo thins. Like, I mean, or just like, you get the individual snack ones. So you're not having like a whole sleeve of like, so just trying a bunch of things and changing your environment, kind of seeing what sticks and what works. And if something doesn't, okay, well, let's try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, like you said, with the treadmill or the step pad, it's like, oh, but that's $400. And it's like, yeah, but like you're paying with your money or you're paying with your health, like in your goals. So like you're always paying, there's always a sacrifice. You just have to pick which one you want to give. Like that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah. And so I saw someone on Instagram, and they said, sorry, not sorry, but you'll spend $400, $500, $600 on Taylor Swift concert tickets, but you won't buy a step pad or something like that. So it's like, or the Grubhub, it's like, okay, well, how much could you save if you weren't Grubhubbing food? And I know that sometimes people might be like, hey, whoa, like that's T Swift or whatever it may be, but it's like, okay, what can I do? What can I change within my environment instead of falling victim to it over and over and over again?
Yeah. And it's like, listen, those things aren't a problem if you're happy with where you are. But like if you
Right.
are actively struggling in your fitness journey and maybe you have a coach and you're like, this shit is too hard, I'm struggling, or you don't have a coach and you're like, I just don't know why it's not working and it's so difficult for me to stay on track. It's like, well, then like, I mean, I firmly believe in the statement, like, show me your bank statement, I'll show you your priorities. Like that is very, very true. And like if there's a $700 Taylor Swift concert ticket on there, it's like that could have also gone to some home gym equipment, a step pad, a couple months of coaching, like a lot of different
How
things.
many rotisserie chickens could
A
you
lot of
buy?
fucking Costco trips. Like, yeah. So, and I'm just saying that in the sense of like, if you want to make consistency easier, like if you for some reason enjoy just being really stressed out all the time, then don't listen to this advice. But if you want to just simplify the process, there are things you can do to kind of manipulate your environment, get things in the right place so that it's easier to make these choices. And that doesn't mean that it's easy. I just said easier. And
Yeah.
it takes work one way or the other, but it's like you got to just choose where you want to put the work in. And so
Yeah.
that's where I would say there. And then just on the flip side of like, all right, so that's like your environment that you have some level of control over. Then I would say like when it comes to inconsistent environments, so like eating out, social events, travel, or just if your environment is inconsistent. Like I have a couple clients who are like right now bouncing between 3 or 4 different like living spaces, like in-laws on one side, in-laws on the other, their apartment together, and then like the other person's like the husband's house somewhere else closer to his work. It's crazy. They're like bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. And they're actually doing a good job because they have basically got their kind of Costco haul of like Fairlife protein shakes and frozen like chicken tenders and sort of things in the fridge at every single location. And they're actually doing pretty okay. So you can use similar strategies for stuff like that. Or when there's just inconsistent environments, I will say, like, honestly, you just have to have a certain set of non-negotiables that you are going to stick to no matter where you are, like hydration or certain number of steps per day, or like a protein goal that you try to prioritize. And also just remembering when you're at social events, when you're out to eat, the option that can suit your goals is probably there on the menu, but it's probably just not the one that you want. And it's probably not perfectly portioned for you either. So like there could be like a chicken, potato, and vegetable entree, and you could get it and it could be like 3 times the size of the portions that you really need. It's really common nowadays. That's why most of our country is obese. But like you might not want to cut it in half, take half home, and eat one half of the portions, but that might be what your goals require of you. And so the best option for your goals is probably there, but you have to actually choose it for you to move forward with your goals. So I would say with inconsistent environments, those are kind of the 2 things that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I love the non-negotiables, and that's something that we talk with our clients a lot about when it comes to like travel and stuff. It's like, what are like, okay, regardless of what happens, I need to do X, Y, Z to at least keep me somewhat on track. And I think that like when it comes down to making consistency easier, one of the things that I'll say too is it's really difficult if you go through like your day with no rhyme or reason. Like I feel like it's really difficult, and it almost creates more thoughts. Like, what am I going to eat? How am I? What time am I going to eat? What do we have in the fridge or whatever? But it's like if you have a little bit more structure to your day, and you have an idea of what to eat when you're in those moments, it frees up. It actually does free up a lot of time and a lot of mental space for other things. And so
Yeah.
I'm thinking about one client in particular who was like, I just didn't realize, like, once those things kind of became automatic to me, how much more time I felt like I had. And she was like, I just didn't realize how much of a burden that all that stuff was to me, or thinking, I just don't know, or I'm not happy with this. And like, once it shifted, she's like, oh my gosh, like everything is so much easier now. So it might require a little bit of work. And like we were talking about, that mindfulness and being intentional, it might require a little bit more upfront work, but then the return on that is huge. So I love the
Yeah.
idea of like a return on investment and mean like,
Yeah.
okay, if I do the Costco things, if I'm doing these meal preps, like how that helps in the future.
Yeah. It's like the, I forget exactly what the number was, but this is a totally different context, but it kind of overlaps it in what you said, right? There's a little bit more upfront legwork. I think Alex Hormozy said that if you spend, and it's like a statistic, it's not what he just pulled out of his ass, but like if you spend like 20 hours doing something, you can become like better than 80% of the population or 90% of the population at that skill if you just practice it for 20 hours. And so what he tries to do is front load those 20 hours as quickly as humanly possible with any skill that he's trying to learn, so that he can at least like be ahead of the learning curve with that. Because where do people really get tripped up the most? They get tripped up the most when they're getting started and there's a lot of information to learn. And so as quickly as you can get through those 20 hours of information, of practice, of reps, of learning, the faster you just have that kind of payout, right? And so like I'm thinking of it from like a learning nutrition, macros, planning, groceries, all this stuff. It's like if I spent 20 hours studying it, like a full like 2 10-hour days or something like that, like really, really learning the right things, I think absolutely like I would have enough information down to like get by, have structure, know what to do, shop for, etc. The problem is that we like kind of get started a little bit and then we like get down, like mess up once and then we kick ourselves for like 2 weeks and then we start over again, and we are like literally building in increments of like 1-2 choices at a time versus like actually just front loading that work and getting the payout sooner.
Yeah, I love that. And then you are on your way to eating a tub of yogurt every day.
Yeah.
If you don't follow Alex Hormozy, that's what he does to get protein in. But it's, again, it's funny. It's just like, hey, this is simple, this is convenient. I do this every day and I don't have to think about it anymore. It's just automatic.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like an unconventional approach that not a lot of people might enjoy, but I love
Yeah.
the fact that he just makes everything like so stupid simple that you just kind of like hit yourself on the head and you're like, why was I overthinking that again? Like it
Yeah.
literally can be that simple.
He shared something, was it yesterday, about how he doesn't like putting sunscreen on his face because he doesn't. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, he's like, I know it's so stupid. And I was like, what did I just watch? But I just love his simplicity with things. Like you're saying, it's like he knows that putting sunscreen on his face is good for like preventing wrinkles and like it's good for skincare. But he hates putting sunscreen on his face because he doesn't like his fingers getting oily. So he just wouldn't do it until he realized that chapstick has SPF in it. And now he rubs chapstick on his face and he's like, boom, sunscreen.
That is
But
a $100 million CEO.
yeah, but it's just so funny, right? It's like, or like how he gets in, he eats a lot of protein every day. And it's just okay, just a tub of yogurt, boom, easy, convenient, done. So it's like like we were saying, it's like it doesn't need to be this crazy elaborate thing. It's just fine. And even if it's weird, it's like if it works for you and you like it and it's easy, then like go for it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing was like a pound of meat is about 100 grams of protein, was like the math that he figured out. He's like, any meat, just, lean meat, pound of it, about 100 grams. So like if I want 200 grams of protein, I'm gonna eat 2 pounds of meat a day. And I was like, I mean, yeah, like it is that simple if you're really willing to do that. Like that sucks though. But I guess you could split that up into like 4 meals with 8 ounces of meat each. It's not terrible, but like
Yeah.
for somebody who is 200 pounds or wants to be 200 pounds, I guess that is not that bad. But anyways, yeah, just figuring out like how can you make it so stupid simple that you're like, all right, like if I can't do this, something's wrong with me. Like if you can get nutrition down to that point, it can honestly be really, really helpful for you to just kind of distill down. And a lot of times it's just remembering what to focus on and what not to focus on and like keeping your filters on.
Yeah, and that's why I like, the rule of threes. So you and I both utilize this with our clients. And it's again, it's just like super simple rules that you can implement and just like look down at your plate to be like, do I have a carb source? Do I have a fat source? Like, do I have a protein source? Like, where are they coming from? Like portion sizes. So I can like quickly scan. And if I do that for all of my meals, I'm gonna have pretty balanced meals throughout the day. And even if I'm not necessarily really tracking, it's like I'm probably going to have a decent set of like macros at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like if you don't know where to start and you're super overwhelmed, it's like carb, fat, protein source, like fruit and vegetables. Like I have a rule of threes kind of like meal prep guide. Same principle though. It's like you just go to the grocery store and you buy like three protein sources, three fat sources, three fruits slash vegetables, three carb sources, and you just prep all of them. And you have over 81 different meal combinations that you can make from those 12 items, because that's
Yeah.
how exponential math works. But yeah, so uh I mean, that's it. That's pretty much it, right? Like
Yeah.
just the simple stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Super simple. Just be super intentional, be mindful. And I love the idea of just making convenient options like a little bit healthier.
Mhm.
And changing your environment if you feel like something's not working for you. So I think that those are summarizes everything really great.
Yeah.
And then you can reach out to Marissa if you want the rule of three guides.
Yeah.
And I was actually just thinking about it. I have a grocery guide. So a lot of things that you can grab in bulk. So if you want that, you can reach out. Maybe we can have in the show notes little links for you guys to include. But other than that, yeah. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Christy Lynn Fit. Marissa is at Marissa Roy Fitness. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope to see you back next week.